Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today is the 2nd of December 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So kicking off today, we have a thread from Proto Lambda all about withdrawals and EIP4844, and he starts off this thread by saying, let's do some napkin math on withdrawals and EIP4844. Withdrawals are and always will be a top priority, but we need some perspective. Now, this is quite a lengthy thread, so I'm not going to go through it all on the refuel. I do want to go through some of his conclusions here, but just a bit of background on who Proto Lambda is. He is one half of Proto Danksharding. So Proto, obviously, a homage to his name there, and Danksharding, obviously, a homage to Dan Feist, who's an Ethereum Foundation researcher, and Proto Lambda currently works at Optimism. So yeah, just some background on him there. So obviously he has a vested interest in seeing EIP4844, which is Proto Danksharding, going live, but I don't think that he's trying to push it live, instead of withdrawals or anything like that. He says that in his thread, basically saying, withdrawals should definitely come first, but he's basically saying that he would love to see 4844 follow shortly after, not actually wait till like the end of next year or something like that. And he bases this reasoning or this conclusion on the math around this. So the TLDR of his thread is basically that he says here in summary, combining withdrawals and 4844 and shipping in April can be a net positive. Realistically, we should optimize for EIP 4844 ASAP after withdrawals by summer 23. That's Northern Hemisphere summer, so I guess like mid-ish 2023. The cost gets higher than shipping withdrawals in March. And the cost is basically based on both economic and social costs of when you enable these things. So he argues that basically, if you enable, withdrawals, if you wait to enable withdrawals, there is a cost there, both economic and social, to stakers. And then if you wait to enable 4844, there's a cost to people using layer 2s, because the more they go with, relatively expensive call data, the more the cost is kind of incurred by users, and the worse it kind of gets for them over time, especially as these things grow. That's a very high level of his thread. As I said, I suggest giving his thread a read, but I kind of agree with his reasoning, but maybe disagree with the conclusion, if I could put it that way, because I don't know if it's going to be possible to get like 4844 included very soon after withdrawals, like within 3 months after withdrawals, unless 4844 is ready by the time the withdrawal EIP goes live. And by ready, I mean has gone through the test nets, has been successful, has had the audits, had all the client teams have coded it up and basically have it ready. Then you could imagine within 3 months it could go live. We don't know if that's going to be the case. As I've said before, 4844 dev nets are spun up. The KZG ceremony is making progress, which I'm going to discuss in a little bit. So it's not unlikely that this could happen. It's not like it couldn't happen, but it just depends on, a bunch of different things here. But I don't really... I should have said, I agree with the conclusion. I don't disagree. I don't really agree with the reasoning about the cost here and the social economic cost. I think that there's a lot of hidden costs in not delaying withdrawals, but when withdrawals not going live as soon as possible. It is obviously going live as soon as possible, but if we were to delay withdrawals, say, to include 4844, even by 3 months, there is a big cost there. And I think the cost is greater for withdrawals than it would be for 4844. Whereas in this thread, Proto goes through the reasoning, behind both of it. What is the cost actually incurred on both economic and social means for both of these things, for 4844 and withdrawals. But anyway, I definitely recommend giving this thread a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. I just thought it was worth highlighting. But at the end of the day, I think the way it's currently going to work is that we should get withdrawals by March, April, and then if 4844 is basically all ready to go, all done as I just described, we could get it within 3 months. More, within 3 months, I'd probably give it up to a coin toss. 3 to 6 months after withdrawals go live, it probably seems more likely to me, but it just depends. And I think that I've explained this before, but as Ethereum gets bigger, as the network gets bigger in not only kind of value, but also the people using it, as the more entities get onboarded onto it, not just the apps, but also the infrastructure around it, especially layer 2s, it becomes more difficult to, and especially the amount of people in the governance process, it becomes more difficult to affect change at a rapid pace. And Also, there's a lot of client teams now. There's not just the execution layer anymore. There's also the consensus layer. They all have to work together. They all have to get this stuff done. And there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of overhead on the, I guess, like a social side of things. So we'll have to see how that shapes out next year. But still a great thread. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. And speaking of 4844, we have Superfizz here, who said that the Ethereum Foundation is hosting a KZG ceremony as part of the trusted setup for EIP4844. They hope to get 10,000 participants who let their browser calculate for a few minutes. Let's blow past the goal. We'll raise awareness now and go in January. So just an awareness thing here, and he links to a consensus layer call as well. I'm definitely going to be participating in this. I hope you guys are too. There will be instructions on exactly how to participate in this as we get closer to the ceremony itself. I believe they're spinning up a whole dedicated website for it. I think it was live, but it wasn't working. It was just like in a kind of staging / testing environments. But yeah, if you are able to lend your, I guess, like browser to the ceremony for a few minutes, you can be part of history here. And I'm sure there's going to be a pop-up for being a part of this and all that good stuff as well. And I'm definitely looking forward to this. But I've explained the KZG ceremony to you guys before. It's a requirement to get EIP4844 implemented in Ethereum, and it only requires one honest participant as part of it. So 1 out of 10,000, as long as one is honest, and even if the rest are dishonest, it is secure. And as I've explained before, the beautiful thing is you only need to trust yourself in that scenario. So if you know that you're honest, then it's fine. You can actually trust the system. That's how cool it is. Like if you participate and you know that you've been honest, at least this is from my understanding, you can trust that the KZG ceremony was done properly, and you can trust that it's secure because you're trusting yourself, obviously. So it's really cool when you think about it like that. I've always loved that frame of thinking. But yeah, just another reminder here about that, and I'll definitely keep reminding you guys as we get closer to the ceremony that's going to happen, hopefully relatively soon. All right, Tim Biko put out a tweet today saying, with the merge done, I'd like Ethereum to move to a better upgrade naming scheme. It would be nice if upgrades had a high-level name that maps well to subcomponents for EL/CL releases. Posted some initial suggestions on ETH Magician's feedback. Welcome. So you can kind of see here his little post here about naming, I guess, like standards around network upgrades or hard forks. I think Polina here on the Twitter thread basically suggests, how about something fun for a change? Let's say from the world of sports, music, games, fashion, etc., that non-computer nerds actually care about. And then Tim says, non-computer nerds don't care about the name of the upgrade anyways. More useful for people within the community. That said, I'm very open to your fun suggestions. And then he says, Chapella is pretty fun. I'm like, and someone says, no, Chapella sounds like a funny name. But yeah, just something that you guys might figure would be something that's worth your time to add a reply to on the ETH Magicians forum here. There's been a bunch of good replies. My favorite reply is someone saying that we should name them after planets and moons and just like celestial objects. I think that'd be really, really cool because I love space. So personally, like I'd love to see everything just be named after celestial objects, but maybe we have a mix as well. Like, you have the celestial objects, you have major rivers and cities on Earth, and then you can split up the celestial objects into star systems and planets and largest moons and all that stuff there. But yeah, you can go give these replies a read for yourself. I'll link this in the YouTube description, but just something that you can also get involved with as well. All right, so Obol Labs put out a tweet thread yesterday saying, or today I should say, on the second anniversary of the Beacon Chain launch, which I will discuss in a bit because it is the second anniversary, that brought the first gen of Ethereum validators, we have some big news. Today, we launch our distributed validator launchpad to help bring the next gen of ETH staking. Now, I've talked about Obol Labs before and how they are enabling DVT or distributed validator technology and their technology that they're using to do that. So with the Obol DV Launchpad, it provides an easy and secure way for anyone to launch a distributed validator cluster with their peers with a UI for setting up a cluster configuration, coordinating with operators, generating key shares via a DKG, and verifying that a new cluster is live. And you can kind of see a screenshot of the interface here. It looks pretty straightforward, looks pretty simple, nothing too technical or fancy there, which is great to see. And then they're continuing this thread with a bit more, information, but also a link to getting access to the beta. As they say here, today we're launching the DV Launchpad in public beta, and we'll be ensuring its ease of use and quality in our next major testnet, early Q1 2023. If you're interested in DVT or staking, we want you to join us, and then you can kind of register on this form below. But just great to see this live. I've discussed before how DVT can help us a lot with decentralization of the beacon chain, but not only that, also redundancy and also just general security benefits. And Obol is at the forefront of it for sure. And I should disclose here, I'm an angel investor in Obol. I've been supporting them for a very long time now. It's funny, one of their founders, I almost worked for them once upon a time, back in like 2019, I think it was, before I joined SET back then. So just a little fun fact, but yeah, just thought I'd disclose that there. But yeah, I'll link this in the YouTube description. You can go check it out for yourself. But on this topic, it is the second birthday of the Ethereum beacon chain. So the beacon chain went live on the 1st of December 2022. So obviously the birthday was yesterday, but I didn't cover it yesterday because I forgot, to be honest, and then I noticed that. I'm like, oh my god, it actually is the second birthday. And I did put it out before midnight, so it was still technically the 1st of December. But yeah, I mean, it's already been 2 years. And so where is the beacon chain today? Well, I think the biggest milestone for the beacon chain is that it was merged into the Ethereum network we all knew and loved back in September 15th of this year. But not only that, if you go to Beacon Chain here, one of my favorite websites for tracking everything got to do with the beacon chain, we are almost at 500,000 validators with almost 15.5 million ETH staked. This is crazy. This is just absolutely amazing how much growth has happened within those 2 years, and withdrawals still aren't enabled, right? Like, this is a one-way street for that ETH. I know LSD's kind of changed the dynamic there, but still, like, that ETH is just sitting there staking, part of those validators. So obviously very, very awesome. But yeah, a bunch of other stats around this as well is just about the amount of LSDs that are live, the amount of just staking providers that are live, the amount of people that are solo staking, obviously the decentralized LSDs like Rocket Pool continuing to grow, all that good stuff there. The beacon chain has had an amazing 2 years, and I mean, it's still so early, right? It's funny because, like, for most of the beacon chain's life, it wasn't actually doing much. It was only coming to consensus on itself. It wasn't coming to consensus on the execution layer, aka the normal transactions that you and I do every day, or, you know, depending on how often you do a transaction. But I think that for, you know, since September 15th, which wasn't that long ago now, right? Like, it's been almost 3 months now. This month it'll be 3 months on December 15th there. The beacon chain has actually been doing work for the execution layer, and it's been doing it flawlessly. There has been no issues, and the merge went through flawlessly, as we all know. And it's just such a monumental achievement that this has kind of happened, and the beacon chain is still so young, and it's doing its job, and more people are comfortable staking with it. And we have withdrawals coming very soon, where we can basically finally say that the ETH staking, roadmap has been delivered. There are other things coming that improve Ethereum staking, but I think in terms of, like, just delivering proof of stake, we aren't there yet. Like, we're at like 95%. I think that last 5% is withdrawals, and it's a very important 5%. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think we can, I guess, like, accurately say that Ethereum proof of stake is fully live until withdrawals are enabled there. But still, a monumental achievement over the last 2 years for the beacon chain, and obviously we want to continue to see the beacon chain thrive into the future. All right, so Dino Eggs on Twitter had a great little blog post that I came across yesterday called Easier Framing for Blockchain Nodes. In this article, Dino Eggs outlines the different types of blockchain nodes, explains their functions, and suggests an alternative framework. Now, we all know that there are different names given to different nodes and validator types, and, you know, there's a full node, there's an archive node, and light client, all these sorts of stuff. And the nomenclature can get quite confusing, right? And the terminology can get quite confusing. And here, Dino Eggs wants to basically reframe this, essentially, right? So the current framing is that we have blockchain nodes that are thought of as validators, full nodes, and light clients. And yes, of course, there are other types of nodes such as archive nodes, but these are the main three. And you can see them in this little diagram here, which I actually thought is a pretty cool diagram, which is from Chainlink God's article, where you can see block producers, full nodes, and light nodes, right? So basically, the block producers would be the validators in this case, and then you've got full nodes that sit in the middle and light nodes that sit off of that, with the block producers sitting off, or the validators sitting off of that as well. And then Dino Eggs talks about what validators are, what full nodes are, what light clients are, and then, you know, what's the problem here to solve? Well, terminology, alternative framing around it, and then he goes on to explain what the terminology and framing could be here. So just wanted to highlight this blog post. It's something that I recommend giving a read, especially if you're confused about these terminology and these kind of like terms that you hear me talk about a lot, you hear a lot of other people talk about. I think it's worth giving this blog post a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description for you to do so. And also subscribe if you haven't yet to this newsletter. I've come across a couple of Dino Eggs posts before, and they've been quite informative. So just another way of thinking about full nodes and archive nodes and all the terminology around that. All right, so if, there we go, that wasn't loading for a second there. So tries.eth, or I guess like trees.eth on Twitter today announced something called Interface.fyi, which Interface automatically generates UI for most smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain, no ABI required. This includes contracts that aren't verified. And this is obviously one for the developers out there, but just another tool that I figured I'd put on your radar because it seems a lot of developers are getting excited about this, and it seems like something that will help them in their workflow. So not much else to say about this one. Just wanted to put it on the radar. You can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so here we come to the meaty part of today's episode, which was a tweet thread put out by Coinbase Wallet. Basically started off by saying, you might have noticed you can't send NFTs on Coinbase Wallet iOS anymore. This is because Apple blocked our last app release until we disabled the feature. And the Coinbase Wallet thread continues, Apple's claim is that the gas fees required to send NFTs need to be paid through their in-app purchase system so that they can collect 30% of the gas fee. And then they continue by saying, for anyone who understands how NFTs and blockchains works, this is clearly not possible. Apple's proprietary in-app purchase system does not support crypto, so we couldn't comply even if we tried. Now, the obvious reason here as to why this doesn't work is because Coinbase Wallet isn't taking the gas fees for themselves. That's going to the Ethereum network. So they can't take 30% from that, because then what they would have to do if they needed to pay that 30% would be to add an additional fee on top of the gas fee. But the thing is that the way it's currently designed by Apple is that you can't do that either, because they would charge 30% on that 30% and then 30% on the gas fees as well, which is obviously insane, right? Doesn't make any sense. Now, Apple has been coming under fire for this very predatory practice of forcing everyone who has in-app purchases to go through paying 30% on it, even if it makes no sense to do so. And it's pushed a lot of things off the iOS platform. It's pushed a lot of functionality off the platform. Like, I don't even think Amazon can sell ebooks on there, because it applies to in-app purchases, so software. It doesn't apply to physical things. But there's also exceptions for things like banks, I believe. I'm not totally sure on that, and I think it depends on the country you're in and maybe the bank that you're part of. But generally, Apple takes this massive 30% cut from every in-app purchase. And it's obviously extremely profitable for them, because in-app purchases in general are profitable. And as I said, this is not unique to crypto. There have been lawsuits against Apple for this. I kind of feel like it's heading to a thing where Apple is going to face some I guess, regulations from the government. There might be an antitrust case brought against them, and they might be forced to remove this from certain, I guess, activities that happen on the platform. And the reason why it's so egregious is because Apple holds a duopoly on the mobile market with Android, right? Android, you can get around things a lot easier because you can sideload apps, and Android is, there's the Play Store, but then there's also other app stores you can install, and there are various ways of doing things. Whereas with iOS, unless you jailbreak the phone, which most people don't do these days, you're locked into Apple's ecosystem completely. There is no way to install a different app store. There is no way to sideload apps. You can't do anything. You're completely locked down. And the thing is that that's still very popular. The iPhone is still the most popular mobile device. I should say one of the most popular mobile devices in the world. Obviously, Android is more popular as a software platform, but iOS is much more profitable from what I've seen. And because it's a duopoly, and because there's been many failures in the past of competing with this duopoly, it becomes harder and harder, because Apple and, I think Samsung owns the Android market in terms of hardware. They just dominate. And we've had, Windows Phone, there's been attempts from BlackBerry, there's been attempts from other ones at building different software. Hardware is even harder. Like, people brought up today, this is why people are building the Solana phone, or the Solana phone fixes this. I'm like, no, it doesn't, because As far as I know, the Solana phone is just running a modified version of Android. And at the same time, if they're trying to build their own hardware, that is incredibly hard to do. For those of you who don't know, the Solana phone is actually Solana Labs acquiring a hardware manufacturer that failed to build that phone for them. The reason why that manufacturer failed is because to be a profitable phone manufacturer, you have to sell at least, I think, 500,000 units. That might not seem like much, but it is, because the smartphone market is already extremely competitive. It's already dominated by Apple and Samsung, the hardware side of things, and then you have all the other vendors out there, the ones that are the bigger than Solana. Right. So, and I think the Solana phone maybe had like not that many pre-orders, nowhere near 500,000 pre-orders. And then on top of that, you have to offer a compelling experience as part of your modified, I guess, like Android stack to get people to want to switch. And like, no one who owns an iPhone and is happy with their iPhone is going to switch to an Android device, let alone the Solana phone, let alone an Ethereum phone. I'm not even advocating for that. So for this duopoly to be broken will probably require government intervention, because it's impossible to compete. I mean, like, bigger companies, and much bigger companies than Solana have tried. I mean, Microsoft has tried and they couldn't succeed. They have some of their own devices these days. They've got like the Microsoft Duo, which is like this very niche kind of dual screen phone. I think they had some other things, but they tried to do Windows Phone, that failed. And there's been other manufacturers that have come and gone as time has gone on. It's just very, very hard thing to do. So from that perspective, I don't think making a new phone and making a modified operating system and thinking people are going to switch over is the solution here. The solution is to basically force Apple to stop doing this anti-competitive stuff. And yes, I know that involves government intervention and regulation, and that might not be something that you agree with, but I think that my general view on these things is that I'm happy for the free market to do what it needs to do on the most part, but there are certain scenarios where the government needs to step in, because capitalism tends to monopolize over time, especially for very specialized industries. I mean, look at the chip manufacturer industry. It's very centralized, so centralized, in fact, that it became a national security issue for the US to build chips onshore instead of relying on Taiwan because of all the stuff with China. And then because it's so specialized and so hard to do, it's very hard to compete, and government needs to subsidize that, right? So I think for industries where it's extremely hard to compete because of the specialization and because of the pure economies of scale, leading to the competitors being able to just destroy their competition, there needs to be government help and intervention and regulation there, which I think is fine. And you know, I know I've said in the past that I'm really not a big fan of regulations in general, but I think for me that applies mostly to the financial side of things, not really to things like this, where obviously, you know, if no one else can break up the duopoly, you're going to need the government to come in and do that. Now, I don't know what that would look like. I don't know if that would look like Apple and the US government, for example, coming to a kind of conclusion together of, okay, well, Apple won't apply this 30% cut to things that it just doesn't make sense to apply it to. And these are the exceptions. And Apple will adhere to that. I think that's common sense, to be honest. I think that in the long run, Apple is probably hurting themselves by doing this. I guess, like, depending on how a bunch of things play out. But because they're motivated by profit, they don't have any reason to stop doing this, because it is not in their best interest to stop doing this, at least as far as they're concerned. So that's another reason why you would need government intervention here to do this. But yeah, anyway, but now that I've given the context and background and all of that, the main thing here is like how this affects crypto wallets generally, and how this makes crypto mobile wallets very limited. And I think it affects crypto wallets the most, because a lot of the stuff that we do in a mobile wallet is through an app. And if you remember, Coinbase Wallet actually had to remove I think they had to remove the bookmarks to DeFi apps, or like native integrations with DeFi apps in their app, because of the fact that Apple couldn't take that cut. And they reviewed it and basically said, no, because you're getting around that, and you're selling like I guess they're defining it as an in-app purchase. And we can't take a cut from that. You're not allowed to have that functionality in your app, which is obviously very predatory, very crap for crypto in general, and definitely something that needs to be done there. But there are other attempts here as well, not just the attempts of creating new phones and creating new phone software, but also attempts, even funny enough, out of the Solana ecosystem, there's something called XNFT or Backpack that's being built in the ecosystem there. They also want to build it for Ethereum, but it's the concept of making every every app, like every Ethereum or Solana app into its own X NFT, where you don't have to go through the app store to use it. You use it on your phone as like an app that you create via a bookmark, as far as I understand it, on iOS. And I'm not totally sure how it works on Android, but I guess like the gist of what I'm trying to say is that there is other attempts out there of getting around this, but at the end of the day, it's just shitty that we can't have these apps with their full functionality in the App Store, because Apple is just adamant on having this 30% in-app purchase on things, even if it's on things like gas fees, which makes no sense, because the gas fee is not paid to Coinbase at all. It is not something they're making money from. It's going to the network, and you can't charge 30% on that because of the fact of the matter is that all of it needs to go to the network. The network is charging you for that. I mean, you guys know how gas fees work and why this is insane. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to leave that one at that. You can read Coinbase's thread. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, another big announcement today, this one out of the Web 2 ecosystem. You can see here that Stripe has announced a customizable and embeddable fiat-to-crypto on-ramp. So as far as I understand, people that use Stripe will be able to embed this or use this as part of their e-commerce suite. You can see here that there's just a simple script that people can add to their site, and basically you can see that who's actually using this on-ramp right now. So in the Web3 ecosystem, so ODS is using it, Magic Eden is using it, and Argent is using it. So you can go quickly from fiat to crypto, sign it, and you can sign up or log in via a link here very easily with Stripe, and then away you go. I mean, you can watch the GIF in front of me. That's what I'm kind of talking to right now. And this is really cool. I mean, just another way to very quickly onboard from fiat to crypto, but directly integrated with all the apps that we know and love on both Web 2 and Web 3. So say, for example, you want to pay with crypto on a website, but you don't have any crypto on you, but you've got fiat on you. Well, you can transfer that into fiat and then pay with crypto. Obviously, I mean, I don't know how many people are going to want to do that, but there is a use case for that. Or say that you don't have any crypto and you want to use the functionality of a website that requires you to have crypto. Obviously, that applies to the Web3 side of things. Well, this widget will allow you to quickly do that. And this isn't the first one that's come out. There's been others, of course, and there's actually plenty of others. But Stripe has a massive brand. They have a massive network. They have a massive network of developers and e-commerce providers and people that use them. So that's the magic here for them. And that's how they're going to get the adoption, because they already have the network effect. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory, I think. But yeah, very cool to see Stripe doing this, and cool to see that they are actually supporting crypto instead of bucking it, which some Web 2 companies still are. I think, you know what? I would actually say the majority aren't bucking it. Majority aren't really doing much with it yet, but I think they're interested in doing stuff with it and looking into it. I mean, the prime example here is obviously Facebook rebranding as Meta and going all in on the metaverse, but we've all seen how that's played out so far. It hasn't been very successful yet, but remains to be seen what happens there. But I like this trend. I mean, and also they integrated NFTs with Instagram on Polygon and things like that. So they are getting more involved. But it remains to be seen, like, how many of these Web 2 companies are early adopters and how many are going to just like follow the trend, so to speak, as the years go on. But we'll see. Maybe it happens in the next bull market. I don't know. We're all just guessing around here, right? But anyway, on that note, I'm going to leave it at that for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all next week. Thanks, everyone.